Hey, everybody, welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. I'm here with the Miserable Liberal and Ron Placone.
Hi, Jim.
Hello.
You remember this story? We showed you this story from last week from The Guardian from this guy named Luke Harding, who Luke Harding is a discredited journalist who wrote a book called Collusion. He's just discredited by people who are actually not swallowing propaganda. The establishment loves him. He's not. If you lie on behalf of the establishment, which is what Luke Harding does, and The Guardian, by the way, they will. There's never a price to pay, ever. You'll never be ever. So here we go. So that's why all these people can it's like every month or 2 months or so, there's this big story. We got him on Russiagate. We got Trump on Russiagate. And then everybody rushes and this is it. And then it just peters out. Now, this didn't happen once. It didn't happen twice. It's been happening every couple of months for 2 years. This has happened over and over and over, and nobody ever gets discredited, no matter how many bullshit stories they push. And Glenn Greenwald makes a great point. He said if this were just honest mistakes, you would expect half the mistakes to go one way and half the mistakes to go the other way. But these aren't honest mistakes. These are every single one of the mistakes in the Russiagate reporting go the exact same way. And what way is that? The establishment narrative that this happened. Nobody ever says, hey, we debunked it, and then they turned out to be wrong. No. It's always, we got them. This is it again. Same thing. So Luke Harding and this guy, Dan Collins, they put this bogus article that should have never been allowed in The Guardian, but it was. And here I love Caitlin Johnson said, oh, by the way, a lot of the news, we talked about it. News organizations went out and re-reported this story. This story, by the way, that isn't sourced. And the establishment news sources, the news outlets that were reporting this story that The Guardian reported, they would use as their source The Guardian story, which is not sourced. So a lot of people re-reported that. It's just even people on YouTube. Turns out a lot of people on YouTube just uncritically reported a conspiracy theory that it's not sourced. And if you actually read the story, it's complete bullshit. Even to me, I could tell immediately it's bullshit. Because it said that Manafort met with Assange 3 times at the Ecuadorian embassy, except nobody has a picture of it. Nobody has a video of it, and he was never even logged in. And by the way, his passport was never stamped. Even I could figure that one out. So here's what in Consortium News, Caitlin Johnson says, if it wasn't obvious to you last week that there is an unelected power establishment which needs above all else to control the public narrative about what's going on in the world, it should certainly be obvious to you this week. Not only because of this story, but because of what happened to the Mark Lamont Hill. He went and told the truth about Israel, and CNN immediately fired him. The Guardian hit piece was so spectacularly desperate in its overreaching to advance a narrative which has been used to manufacture support for longtime CIA/MI6 agendas, like arresting Julian Assange, stopping WikiLeaks, censoring the internet, and subverting Russia, that it completely exposed itself as the establishment psyop firm that it is. So let me just, because that is such a powerful paragraph, it bears repeating, so let's do it. The Guardian hit piece was so spectacularly overreaching to advance a narrative which has been used to manufacture support for longtime CIA/MI6 agendas. They were so spectacularly overreaching in their propaganda that they completely exposed themselves as an establishment psyop firm that it is. So there was a time when there was a thing called the Church Committee here in the United States, and what it did was it exposed the CIA's infiltration into all our newsrooms. Isn't that great? Your own government is propagandizing you constantly through the news. Just like what I was brought up to believe that the communist governments did. That's what Russia is supposed to be doing. So there it is. They so spectacularly overreached in its propaganda pushing to smear Julian Assange that it exposed itself as an establishment psyop firm. And it did. Forever, The Guardian will be compromised over this. Forever. Former Guardian employee Jonathan Cook explains that from what he learned while working at The Guardian, the most likely explanation is that the editors permitted the article to be published because its anonymous sources came from within an intelligence or defense agency. So this is what we've told you what establishment news does. They just repeat uncritically words from government officials, and they call that reporting. That's called stenography. So a spook inside of a paid liar inside of a spook agency said this happened. Did you check it? No, we reprinted it. That's what we did. Here he goes on. This is from that guy, Jonathan Cook, who worked for The Guardian. He says, I've worked for The Guardian for a number of years and know well the layers of checks that any highly sensitive story has to go through before publication. In that lengthy process, a variety of commissioning editors, lawyers, backbench editors, and the editor herself, Kath Vinner, would normally insist on cuts to anything that could not be rigorously defended or corroborated. So normally, with the normal story, it's very rigorous. They're fact-checking and how you have to have established facts and evidence. And we cut out anything that could not be rigorously defended and corroborated. They would cut it out. Well, that didn't happen in that story because the whole thing's bullshit from start to finish. And yet this piece seems to have been casually waved through, given a green light, even though its profound shortcomings were evident to a range of well-placed analysts and journalists from the outset. Isn't that weird? So everybody who normally fact-checks this stuff knows it's bullshit, knows we're doing it differently, but we're going to print it anyway. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? I don't know. Church committee? Anybody? COINTELPRO? Anybody? Because you are an arm of the Western intelligence agencies, the CIA and the MI6. Maybe that's why. That at the very least hints that the Guardian thought they had insurance on this story. Insurance is in quotes. The Guardian thought they had insurance on this story, and the only people who could have promised that kind of insurance are the security and intelligence services, presumably of Britain, the United States, and Ecuador. So why did it get printed? Because it came right from the CIA, MI6, and the Ecuadorian version of CIA, and they just reprinted it uncritically because they are a PSYOP organization of the intelligence agencies. The Guardian is just completely no integrity. They have absolutely no credibility now on any of this stuff. But it's not going to hurt them because, remember, they're lying at the behest of the establishment. If they got caught getting a story wrong about the CIA exposing them, they would be forever pilloried. That's not going to happen here because, again, they're lying on the behalf of the establishment. After that article in The Guardian got totally debunked, we did it here because I saw so many people reporting it uncritically, even on YouTube. That was mind-blowing. And not just one place, multiple places. Turns out a lot of people who say they're progressive are really, really secret right-wingers, Ron. You know that? It's very nice. A lot of people are using that term progressive. Hakeem Jeffries calls himself a progressive. He's against Medicare for all.
Mm-hmm. That's why it's important we tell everybody how bogus and what an oxymoron pragmatic progressive is, first of all. But people have been co-opting the term regardless.
Yeah. So then after that story got debunked, Politico. So now you see how the coordination works. It's not just one Western news outlet in bed with the intelligence agencies doing their bidding, propaganda, like The Guardian. Then Politico prints an even more unbelievably bullshit story.
But theirs is funnier.
Theirs is funnier.
Politico showed up with the comedy.
The Guardian dropped the ball on the laughs. Not a lot of ha-has.
No, not
But
at all.
Politico,
This, on the other hand,
funny from start to finish.
this is good.
Gut buster. So it's written by, if you see right there, by Alex Finley. Do you know who Alex Finley is?
Great comic.
He mixes in magic, and he has a speech impediment, which people... Oh, no, that's a different comic. Alex Finley isn't a real person.
You mean under the Law and Order segment of the...
Under the Law and Order segment of Politico, they got a fake person to write a story saying that it was the Russian intelligence that duped the Guardian into writing that story. Even I couldn't make this shit up. Even I couldn't. Like that's the joke we do. Right? That's the joke we all do. It goes, "Oh God, I can't find my keys. Fucking Russia."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, here it is.
Yeah, here it is. So they're doing it. Did someone plant a story tying Paul Manafort? Did someone plant a story? Yeah, it was the intelligence agencies and the CIA, the MI6, and the Ecuadorian intelligence agency. They didn't plant it. They gave it to Luke Harding, and he fucking printed it, and their editors went right along with it. Why? Because you're all bought and corrupted. That's why, again, we have a show. That's why they suck. I remember. I'm old enough to remember when The Guardian didn't suck.
Right. It was reliable.
One of my favorite guys writes for them, Thomas Frank. He's writing something on populism for them right now. I'm sure that'll be fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be sourced.
Mm-hmm.
Harding is likely. So get this. This is what they say. This pretend person. That's not a real person. That's an ex-CIA person with a fake name. That's who that is. That's who this Alex Finley is. It's an ex-CIA spook with a fake name. And I'll straighten it out for you. And by the way, this passed muster over at Politico's editors too. Why did they just put this on the fucking Washington Post front page? Why fuck around with Politico and The Guardian? Harding is likely a major target for anyone wrapped up in Russia's intelligence operation against the West's democratic institutions. I'll read that again. This is from this story. They're saying that Russia spies planted this and gave it to Luke Harding, who's already been shown to be a discredited liar. Harding is likely a major target for anyone wrapped up in Russia's intelligence operation. So they're saying if you are wrapped up in Russia's intelligence operation against the West's democratic institutions, that's who went after Luke Harding. People who are wrapped up in Russia's intelligence operation. So people who are trying to undermine the West's democratic institutions did this, meaning Russia. That's what this. Can you believe this fucking sentence? This is an amazing sentence. Who did it? Somebody who's trying to undermine the Western's democratic blah, 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 blah. And who would be doing that?
It is us. We are here. We just got back from changing Julian Reed's blog, and man, our arms.
It goes on. He, meaning Luke Harding, this is the CIA spook defending Luke Harding, who is their tool. So now they're stool pigeons. We used to call them stool pigeons. Then they called them stoolies. When I was a kid, if you watch Beretta, or if you watch Mannix, or you watch any of the cop shows, they had a stool pigeon. Right? So that's someone who, anyway, so that's what they're doing. They're defending their stool pigeon. He's just a tool who'll say whatever they want. Luke Harding. So Luke Harding has written a book about the Trump campaign ties to Russia, literally titled Collusion, and literally without a fucking fact in it. I showed you Aaron Matei interviewed Luke Harding. Luke Harding literally hung up on the interview because he didn't want to answer questions about his bullshit book. That's what a good reporter he is. He had not one source that could corroborate collusion. Not one. And he was easily dismantled by Aaron Mattei from The Real News. And he hung up on him. He hung up. He left the interview.
Well, Aaron did ask that big gotcha question. So was there collusion?
Yeah, he kept asking. So what was there?
It.
He says that Luke Harding has written a book about the Trump campaign's time to Russia, literally titled Collusion. So that means that, whoa, this guy's a real target for Russia to try to dupe him. So let's say Russia did dupe him. Why did the editors print it? Let's say he got fake. But by the way, he didn't get duped. This is all bullshit. He's been writing this bullshit all along. And listen to the story. He goes, he's also written numerous stories, numerous articles related to the case. Listen to the list that they give you. Ready? Including about the Steele dossier, which is fucking bullshit. We showed you on this show. Where did the Steele dossier come from? It came from a spy in England who paid people inside the Kremlin to give them made-up stories about Trump. We showed you Richard Engel told Rachel Maddow, I can't corroborate any of the stuff in here. And she stopped the interview and moved on and said, well, it doesn't have to be true to blackmail you. So this is what they look at all these important articles he's written about this. The Steele dossier, Russia's plans to rescue Assange from London and spirit him back away to Moscow.
Well,
also
that
completely.
One is no. I am working on letter right now, Jimmy.
This is all. That's a bullshit story. This is a bullshit. And then he goes on and then Russia's Novichok poisoning operation, also bullshit. If you've looked into any of these stories, beside any of those stories, if you read beneath the headlines, they fall fucking apart. Just like the stories that Assad is just about to win the war, he decided to gas his own people for no fucking reason. Just like that, this made-up story, and they look at all the bullshit stories they launched. So you see so many of them, one of them's got to be true. That's how propaganda works. You just keep saying it over and over and over and over. And then they overreach so badly, they got exposed. And now this spook is trying to convince everybody that Luke Harding isn't a fucking tool. And also, so listen to how this reads. Including the Steele dossier, Russia's plans to help rescue Assange from London and spirit him away to Moscow, Russia's Novichok poisoning operation against Sergei Skripal, and a slew of other Russia is up to no good stories. Like, it even sounds stupid the way he puts it. And a slew of Russia's up to no good. What the fuck? So it sounds like we're just throwing shit against the wall and seeing what sticks. That's what and they put it in there like they don't realize also that looks horrible for them. Here's what Glenn Greenwald said. He said, even after 2 hours after I read it, I still can't believe that Politico actually published an article by an ex-CIA agent under a fake name saying that if the Guardian's blockbuster Assange Manafort story is false, it's Russia's fault. Parroting the U.S. media at this point is futile.
Well, we're going to do it anyway, Glenn. Sorry.
We're going to do it anyway. This is going on right in front of everyone's eyes. Hitler did not have that hard of a time. People are real go-along motherfuckers. Most of the people on YouTube reported this uncritically. Most of the pretend fake lefty outlets reported this. This is amazing. It's amazing how they can shit on Trump and Assange at the same time. Even though Trump is actively trying to fucking kill Assange. Wants him dead. And Pompeo wants him arrested. And the whole CIA wants to get him. So how could that be? How could you hate Trump and hate Assange? And how could they be in collusion if you know goddamn well Trump is trying to put this motherfucker in jail? Isn't that?
If they made some kind of a deal, what did Julian get?
What did he get out of it?
Like, what did he get out of this deal?
Isolation.
Yeah.
And what they don't tell you in the press is the reason why they're going after Julian in that sealed indictment has nothing to do with the 2016 campaign. It's got to do with the war crimes he revealed. Okay. Thanks for being a patron to this show, because they're going to come for us sooner or later. They're not fucking around. They're willing to do bullshit like this. This is after smearing us time and time again, the establishment media. Will anyone ever call the Guardian conspiracy theorists? No. Is the Guardian going to lose their Facebook page over this for fake news? No. Because it's fake news and that aids the establishment. There's never a price to pay. There's a price to pay for telling the truth about the establishment. There's never a price to pay for lying for the establishment. Our next live Jimmy Dore show is February 1st in Burbank, California. Go to jimmydorcomedy.com for a list of all our live shows, and please become a premium member if you can. Become a patron. It's the way we support this show, because they're coming at us, and we give you bonus. We give you hours of bonus material every week. Check it out. Become a patron. And if you can, make sure you're still subscribed. They unsubscribe people every day. I know it sounds crazy. It only takes a second. Please make sure and click that bell when you subscribe so they'll send you a notice when we drop a video. Thanks for your support.